there is something that I need to confess. During this chess game that I will show you, I accidentally cheated. I played an illegal move. I was in check, and instead of solving the check, I made a move with my rook, trying to play for checkmate. And in this video, I'm going to show you this game. I'm going to explain what happened, and there are a lot of things that you can learn from this video. So this was a tournament game against an opponent rated 2080 FIDE rating. So this would probably be like 2400 chess.com rating. So I played d4, my opponent played pawn to d5. And this opponent is incredibly strong. He ended up getting 4.5 out of 7 points, one of the top finishers, and I was actually one of the very few people who was able to slow him down a little bit and steal some points from him. So we have d4, d5, knight to d2. That's the move for the Pegasus system opening. And I think my opponent was not prepared for this. I mean, most opponents can easily look me up and find my opening, but I think he was not prepared because he used quite some time in the opening. Knight f6 is the most standard move, and as white, the plan with the Pegasus system is that if we can play e4, we will play e4. That's why we put the knight here, because we want to support the e4 push. But if the opponent makes that impossible, playing the combination of these two moves, which is the most commonly played thing, knight f6 and pawn to d5, then we have to shift plans. So instead of playing e4, we play e3, and now we are going to play c4 and counterattack the center this way, using our flank pawns. And here my opponent again took quite some time, I would say, and then he played a6. And I would say that at this moment I was out of theory, as to speak, because of course I have not prepared anything specifically against a6. But the good thing with the Pegasus system is that all of these positions flow into each other. They transpose. So even if your opponent plays something a bit strange, it's okay. I think the purpose behind his move was just to stop bishop b5 so that knight to c6 could be played. And also in case I do play c4, which I played, the opponent can capture. And then after a recapture by either the bishop or the knight, there is always the move pawn to b5 as well. So I think that was part of the plan here, to just control this b5 square, maybe play b5, maybe just prevent pieces from going there. So this happened here. There is a general rule in the Pegasus system which says that if this pawn is captured, if you have not moved your bishop yet, just recapture with your bishop. If the bishop has already moved, you should capture with the knight. What does that mean? Imagine this situation right here, and my opponent captures now. I would 100% use my knight. My bishop has already been moved. There's no point in moving it again. We will just use the knight. So you can choose actually between these two moves. In the game, I chose to do it with the bishop, but I was not 100% sure about this. The reason why is this a6 pawn is already on the board, right? So we 100% know that it's very likely that black will play b5. If they play b5, which did not happen in the game immediately, we just have to move this bishop again. So it's a bit of a wasted move. While if we take it with the knight, if b5 happens now, at least the knight could go to e5, and this is a good square for the knight. So I think I made a small mistake there by capturing with the bishop. Usually it's correct, but here because of b5, maybe the knight made more sense. Pawn e6, knight f3, and pawn to c5 by my opponent. So my opponent is actually playing this quite well here, considering that I think he was not prepared. c5 is one of the best ways to fight against this opening. And I will explain something very important here about pawn structure. So in the game, I took this, which is my standard response to c5. I always take it, no matter at which point in the game they play it. If you continue with castling, the problem is that if black takes, we lose our central pawn. What do I mean with that? We only have one pawn here in the center. After they capture, that central pawn is lost. And you might think, well, I will just recapture with my pawn, right? No, because what we have created is we have created for ourselves 3 pawn islands, meaning our pawns are split into 3 different sections, and my opponent only has two pawn islands. So especially this orange pawn, this isolated pawn, it's called an IQP, an isolated queen's pawn, because it's on the queen's file. This one is a weakness. This one might be lost in the future. IQP positions are playable, but not really in the Pegasus system, because this knight should be on c3. It should not be on d2, blocking in your queen. So that's why I always just capture the pawn. And you might think capturing looks strange because we help our opponent to just develop the bishop, but this bishop is actually badly placed on this diagonal. This is not a good diagonal for the bishop since it's looking at these two central pawns, and we will be winning a tempo against this bishop. So I play a3, opponent plays knight to c6. Apparently b5 immediately was a little bit better, knight to c6, and then we play b4. b4 attacks the bishop has to go. Most beginner players put the bishop on b6, but that's actually a bad square for the bishop, because you block in this pawn, which makes it impossible to play the bishop to b7, you block in a square where your queen might go, and you are literally doing nothing with your bishop on this diagonal. So you should go back, you can go d6 or e7, opponent played e7, and then we can develop the bishop. This is a very typical position from the Pegasus system. So with this opening, you are always playing for this, which I like to call the bridge pawn structure. This pawn structure is a very common pawn structure. You don't always go for this, but very often you try to put your pawns exactly like this. Well, the only difference is that here two of them were exchanged, but this structure is still good. We still built this bridge, as I like to call it, and then we have these two bishops aiming towards the king side, and there's always some pleasant play here for white from these positions. So my opponent castled. They are castling, of course, into the diagonals of the bishops. It's playable. Computer just keeps saying that my opponent should play b5 earlier and not wait with playing this move. So here's something interesting, something small, something minor, but I castled expecting the move b5 so that I would play bishop to e2. One interesting sequence that you could play here is queen e2 instead, so that if b5 gets played, at least you can keep your bishop on this diagonal. So I think that's an interesting lesson from this game. If you play this type of structure, you want your bishops to be aiming towards their king side if you can, and this is one way how you can make that happen. If you castle first, which looks logical, if they play b5 now, well, we don't have this move bishop to d3. If you are wondering why, well, take a good look at this queen. The queen can just take the bishop. So bishop back to e2. All right. And my opponent played bishop b7. So at this very moment, I knew that I had at least an equal position against a very strong opponent, probably even slightly better for white. This is an example of a very symmetrical pawn structure, a very symmetrical position. What do I mean with that? The only difference in this position is the placement of these two knights. Like everything else is identical. It's just these two knights that are different. And the knight is actually slightly better placed for us here, so white always has a small advantage. So this is a very interesting position. I will have to study this more for future games as well. But there are lots of different plans that you could play for as white. In this video, we will just cover one specific plan that I played in this game. So the most important file in this position is always the C file, and it's not the D file. How can I know that? Why do I say it's the C file and not the D file? I mean, they both seem open. There are no pawns on the files, yet the C file is more important. Well, the thing with the D file is that most of our minor pieces are controlling the squares. Like this bishop controls these squares, this knight controls these squares. So basically my side of the file, I have it covered. And of course my opponent does the exact same thing because it's an identical position. The knight covers these squares and then their bishop covers the two remaining squares. So it looks like this file is open, but literally every single square on the file is covered by a piece, which means there is not really an infiltration possibility, even if you put a rook on the file. So this file is less important for the rooks. What is the important file? It's this file. It's the C file. Especially here, we can put some pressure on the knight, and we can try to get a piece to this C5 square. So I played rook to C1. Now you understand why. It's this file that we need to fight for. And my opponent played queen to B6. All right, which is a very common move. And this is an interesting position. There are so many different plans that we could go for here, but specifically in this game, I decided to try out a new plan that I had been working on leading up to this tournament, which is to play the move knight to b3. So why knight to b3? Well, this b3 square is a very important square. We actually have many pieces that want to be on that square. Like the queen wants to be on this square, the knight wants to temporarily be on this square, maybe even the bishop could have been on that square if we went back there after being attacked on c4. So this is a very important square. We have multiple pieces fighting for it, and we should try to use it in the most optimal way. And I found out a very nice line that you can play after you play the move knight to b3. So for me, that was still preparation at this point. There are multiple things going on here. The most confusing thing that you might be worried about right now is what is going to happen to this queen? Because my opponent's queen is safe. In general, you always want to have your queen behind the pawn so that it cannot easily be attacked by rook. It looks like my queen is just a sitting duck here in the middle of the board. It's on open files. And yes, that's true. But there is a very interesting solution for this queen, a very nice square that we will go to. So if my opponent straight up attacks the queen, that does not really help them. We just go to c2. And if they then try to set up some tricks by putting the rook on the same file, it does not matter. We play the move knight to c5 next. So the knight goes to c5. And this is just one of those example plans where the knight goes to b3, the knight goes to c5. And now we have this very well-placed knight. We are attacking that bishop, and we have the two pieces on the file as well. And this is one of the plans. We want to use that one very small difference in the position, being we have a differently placed knight, to squeeze an advantage out of this. That's what you need to do in very high-level chess games. Use the minimal things that you can find to try to gain an advantage. So knight b3, knight to c5 is the plan. Did not happen in the game. My opponent did not attack my queen this way, but it could have happened. Instead, my opponent played rook to c8, which is what I was expecting, because now they have a little bit more tempo behind their attack. I will show you what I mean. Imagine if I play a bit of a random move. If they attack my queen now and I go to c2, well, knight takes b4. The queen is hit, the pawn is lost, and white loses the game. So rook c8 as a smart move. They are trying to set up this attack. But here I will deploy a very interesting strategy that you could have seen previously from one of my videos. I used the exact same strategy with black, I think 3 days ago, which is rook to c2. Rook to c2, which looks strange, but there is a square that my queen wants to go to. My queen wants to go to the a1 square, and I would like to get to that square with the minimal amount of moves possible. If I could, I would like to do it with only a single move. So rook to c2, rook to d8, queen to a1. And now we have the queen and bishop together on this long diagonal. And this is an amazing configuration to have. Most opponents really struggle dealing with this. You can see it in this game. Also, as I said, I think 2 or 3 days ago, I uploaded a black game where I did the exact same setup. So this is great. Why is this so great? Well, it puts pressure on the knight. So this bishop can never leave. If this bishop leaves, it's just capture, 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 and then we win a pawn and the queen infiltrates. Even if we don't win a pawn, the capture by itself can always damage the pawn structure. Also, if the knight ever leaves somewhere, let's say it moves forward, then the g7 pawn just drops immediately. So playing the setup like this actually completely disables these two pieces. Like, they just have to stay here. My opponent cannot use these two pieces. So it's technically as if they are down material, because they cannot really use this for as long as we keep the bishop and the queen on the diagonal. So that's the plan. My opponent correctly played the move a5. It's the single best move that they can play. It's a good counter-attack against this b4 pawn, and this is now attacked 3 times. So we have an issue. We need to deal with this. Take, 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 and rook to c1, I think I played. Yes, okay. So very logical still. It is this file that we need to fight for. Remember, all of these squares are covered by pieces. So it's the c file that we want to fight for. Take, take, and bishop to e4. Okay. So first of all, just the fact that everything is getting exchanged at this point, it is likely that we are going to get a very equal endgame from this. Technically, it feels like the position is still a little bit better for white, but it's equal. And bishop to e4 is a good move. I played rook c1, which is actually not the best move. The best move, which I looked into for quite a while, is playing rook to c3, which looks horrible because you are, of course, blocking in your own attack, but the rook is a little bit more useful as it is protecting a3, and also the queen can go behind the rook, and then the rook can infiltrate the position. So that's very small differences, but it's really all of these small differences combined that win or lose games at this level. So rook to c1, my opponent played rook to a8. I had seen all of this coming, and it looks like black is just about to win a pawn here. Like, they have these three pieces attacking this pawn, and we only have two defenders on the pawn, the bishop and the queen. So yeah, we are going to lose a pawn. I saw all of this coming. That's also why I considered to move rook to c3. But here I wanted to set up a very nice trap for my opponent, and I played the move knight to d4. Thinking that this was a genius trap, but it's actually way more complicated than that. So first of all, a quick question. You can solve this as a puzzle and pause if you want. Can black take the free pawn with the bishop? Well, if they take the free pawn with the bishop, they lose the game. Because we take, and if they take, we take, and if they take, well, thank you, that's a back rank checkmate, the game is over. So the point is, the pawn is poisonous, they cannot capture it. That was one of the plans behind his move. Second plan was also heading towards c6. My opponent played b4, which I expected, and then I played a4. Moving the pawn up and removing some of the attackers. Now, the next question, can black capture this pawn? It's a really tricky question, so please pause for a moment. If you want some practice, solve this. Can you take this pawn as black? Well, it turns out black can just straight up win a pawn here. Yeah, me and my opponent both completely missed this. It's tactical, but basically it works. Black can just take a pawn. So that was probably the only moment in this game where I was losing, technically. If they take the pawn, my plan was to play rook to c8, a deflection tactic. Checking the king, attacking the rook, and if my rook gets taken, well, thank you for the queen. We win the game, and there is no back rank checkmate. So that was the plan. And if the bishop blocks, which I had calculated, I played the move rook takes a8, and now the queen has lost its defender. So I had calculated this, and I was thinking, okay, I straight up win the game, which is not true. The queen can literally just take the rook, and this bishop is backwards protecting it. I think both of us probably just completely missed the fact that this bishop was able to backwards capture. So my opponent did not take the free pawn. He played bishop to f8 to stop all of these back rank tactics, which did not really work in the end. So I got lucky here, I think, for a moment, because this could have just been a pawn down endgame. Here I realized that I needed to protect the pawn. Bishop b5 only move. Queen b6, knight goes to c6. As I said before, that was my plan. And what I really wanted to do here, I just wanted to see if I could gain the bishop pair. That means, could I possibly trade my knight for one of his bishops? Because the position is quite open, and if I can trade my knight for the bishop, I will definitely be having a better middle game. My opponent played knight to d5, trying to activate the knight. Remember, I said before that this knight is a piece that they have to be very careful about using, because it can mess up the game for them. But here at this very moment, it doesn't immediately lose them the game. I did not really want to be on c6. My plan was to go to e5 and then go fork, because remember, I just want to win the bishop. Queen d8, I played knight to d7, trying to win this bishop. There is actually a way better line here for white, which I calculated yet decided not to play. The pieces here are a bit badly coordinated for black, and there is the great move pawn to f3. Bishop moves back, pawn to e4. Knight has to go somewhere. Let's just say this is the best square, and we gained a couple of moves on them, and now this bishop is somewhat out of the game. And this knight is also somewhat misplaced. The only thing that I did not like is that we are giving them this huge diagonal towards the king. The diagonal is never a problem, however, because we control c5. Not only that, if the queen checks, we also have bishop to d4. So I should have really gone for this. I did not do it. Yeah, because I saw the diagonal opening up, but it's perfectly playable. So that's why this is not the best move. Knight d7, and my opponent started to go for the counterattack. At this moment, both of us were getting lower on the clock. Opponent was already down bad on the clock. I still had more time, but I'm pretty slow, so I would need it. So my opponent here trying to play for a checkmate threat. There is only one way to prevent yourself from losing the game, which is to also play the move bishop to f1. Just look at these two bishops. What are they even doing here? But they are literally both holding the position together, preventing disaster on both ends. So that was my move. And my opponent played h5, trying to start a winning attack. I think both me and my opponent felt during this game that I was really the one in charge for most of the time, was able to win the bishop, and then here white is winning the game, but it's complicated. Like, the way you win this game apparently is playing rook c4 or rook c5. Both of these moves win the game. I still have to figure out why. It's quite deep. It pins the piece maybe, yes, but if you don't play it here, you don't win the game. I decided to push my passed pawn. If I can get this to promotion, I win the game as well. So that's a simple plan. Pawn to h4. We never want black to be able to play h3. Like, if we randomly push the pawn, this is game over. Like, the pawn could move up. Maybe they could even sacrifice the bishop, then move up the pawn. Like, we are losing this. So we cannot keep pushing. We have to defend. We need to play h3. And my opponent just kept coming at me. All the pawns here running up the board. So I had to defend. Technically here I could just keep pushing, but I started defending here. Bishop to e5, pawn to f4. And here there is again one move that wins the game. My opponent told me about it after the game. Rook to c4. Hits the bishop. And after the bishop moves, pawn takes f4. And yeah, the attack is gone. We are up a pawn. This is promoting. I just simply win the game from here. But yeah, did not see this move. I was very worried about the attack. I had a bit of tunnel vision here on this attack. And I just said, look, let's just exchange everything so that I don't get checkmated. Well, I still have to solve this checkmate. Okay, we just solved it. And then I just wanted to move that pawn up the board and see if I could win that endgame. That was my plan. But apparently I had at least already 3 or 4 wins if I had played the move rook to c4. All right. Opponent plays rook to f5, trying to bring another piece into the attack. I would like to ask you, guess what move wins the game? But it's still rook c4. Rook c4 just wins the game at least 7 times, I think. But I played rook to c8 instead, because I could check the king and I saw a possibility for a tactic in the future. Still, rook c4 is the move. I played f3, and f3 actually completely throws away the game. The game got really messy here, as you can see, both of us making mistakes, but I think my opponent had like 2 minutes left. I had maybe 10 minutes left, I think. But I was already exhausted. This game had been going for more than 3 hours, and yeah, let's just not get checkmated. That was the plan at this point. There is a great sacrifice here that I saw my opponent could play, but I didn't care anymore. I was like, okay, this game I'm not going to win this anymore. It's a draw. My opponent could actually sack the bishop. And if I take, they can take with the queen. I saw this coming, and it does not really matter what I do. Well, it does matter what I do, by the way. If I play the wrong move, I get mated. I get mated eventually, because this is a check. King needs to go. Doesn't really matter what happens. Check, and yeah, that's a checkmate. So there's only one move for me here, which is bishop to g2. But then there was a repetition. The opponent can just check my king forever, and there is nothing I can do. So this is a guaranteed draw that they had. They did not play it. I don't know if my opponent wanted to push for a win, and that's why they did not do it, or if they just missed that it's a threefold repetition. All right. Rook to e8. My opponent played a queen to e3, giving me a check. You can see the evaluation bar is having a seizure right now. Both of us missing. My opponent here, literally, I think he had like 20 seconds left. Something like that. I had minutes left, a couple of minutes, maybe 7 minutes, something like that, if I remember correctly. And here I was just completely exhausted. In this position, after being checked and burning my final minutes trying to come up with a plan, I played the move rook to e7, which is an illegal move. An illegal move, of course, because we are in check, right? We have to deal with the check. How can we play rook e7? I just thought, oh, hillbilly chess, let's do the checkmate on g7, which is actually a great move. Like, if you could play this, you would attack the bishop and have a checkmate threat. So, yeah. that's great. You win the game if you can play it. However, we are in check. So my opponent was incredibly happy, paused the clock, called the arbiter, because of course when you make an illegal move in chess and an over-the-board game, your opponent gets some extra time. I think it's 2 minutes that they gained, or 2 minutes 30 seconds, something like that, that they gain on the clock. So yeah, my opponent was almost running out of time, but I gave him some extra time here by playing that illegal move. After that, I just said, well, I have to play this. It's the only move I could really play. But this really messed up with my mind, because if you are in check and you don't even realize it anymore, like, what's going on? It's just a sign that you are completely at the end of your strength, completely exhausted. I was just like, let's just not lose this, because I'm falling apart here as we speak. And my opponent fighting back so well, given that he was completely losing and only had like 30 seconds left. So queen exchange, and actually this endgame is completely winning for white. And I thought it was completely winning for white at this moment, but I did not see the right combination. So bishop to d3, I played this with a check. King is getting boxed in. King goes to h6, but the king is almost out of squares, and we can actually set up a checkmate sequence here, but I played it in the wrong move order, again, being exhausted, down on the clock. You can simply win the game if you take the pawn. It's like the most straightforward move. Just take the damn pawn, and you are going to eventually win the game. The king goes up. And then we play f4, and now the rook steals these squares, the pawn takes away this square, the king is completely boxed in, and whatever they do, it literally does not matter. Bishop to e2, and that is a checkmate. They can block, take, and that's a checkmate. So I literally had checkmate here if I had played this, but I thought, no, let's play f4 instead. Let's play f4, because if I play f4, I take away these squares, and now there is checkmate on the back rank. But I realized after I let go of this pawn, like, of course it doesn't work, because the moment I play this pawn, there is check from the rook, king has to move, and then they don't take this, by the way. If they take this, that's checkmate in one. But then they just play g6, and now they are saved because they have a square for their king. So messed up the checkmating combination, both of us literally fighting it out with a couple of minutes left. Rook takes e6, rook takes g2, f5, trying to put extra pressure on this pawn. We now have 3 attackers on the pawn, and it's pinned. Opponent played bishop to c8, great move. And here I actually realized that there was a chance for me to completely throw away the game, because if you play the logical looking move, rook takes g6, you lose the game. Because rook takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and now there are 2 passed pawns running down the board at the same time. This one will never promote. We literally lose this. So rook takes g6 would lose the game. Instead I played rook to b6, attacking this pawn, check, up, take the bishop, which I completely missed, by the way. My opponent just sacked the rook for the bishop. I take, check, I go here. Like, what is this messy position? I take the pawn, they take the pawn, and then I knew that this position is just a textbook draw. It's 5 points of material being the rook versus 5 points of material, the 2 pawns and the bishop. We shuffled a little bit. Here, after I checked, my opponent said, draw. I said, fine, you'd really deserved it. Like, he played an incredibly wild game after being down so much. So here we had a draw, and then with that, this game is over. So yeah, one of the strongest players I have played in a very long time. He is now 2,100 plus FIDE. Great player. Could have really won this if I wasn't as exhausted in the end. Maybe there was an opportunity, but this was a rough game. So hope you enjoyed this. Very long video, but I hope you liked it. I am recording all games from this tournament, so stay tuned if you want to see the next rounds.